20 years ago today, the Arizona Diamondbacks defeated the New York Yankees in Game 1 of the 2001 World Series. I'm Jordan Ham with Sports 360 AZ, and we wanted to revisit each and every game of that Fall Classic and talk to the people that were there and share their perspective as the Arizona Diamondbacks navigated their way to Phoenix's first major sports championship. For Game 1, we have Jeff Munn, former public address announcer for the D-backs, to talk about the buildup to Game 1, what it was like navigating through that and getting ready for the New York Yankees. And then also off the field, what was happening in our country just being 6 weeks removed from September 11th. I don't think we can start a conversation about the 2001 World Series with it just starting with baseball. I think so much was going on at that time with what had happened 6 weeks prior with the 9/11 attacks and everything that went into that, and the World Series being the first major sporting event since then. So as public address announcer, as someone who is at the stadium all the time, just how do you remember the nation kind of navigating through that? Yes, there was a pretty important Arizona sports moment happening, but there was also so much happening off the field that a lot of times it felt like baseball was in the back seat for this World Series.
It was really funny, Jordan, in the sense that within the organization, obviously, there was a great deal of excitement because we were going to the World Series. But you're right, there was a component to everything that we were doing involving 9/11. And a lot of it had to do, from our standpoint, with the ceremonies that went on prior to the games, things like national anthems, Ray Charles, the flyovers, that by that time, it had been 6 weeks. And I'm not going to use the phrase we had gotten used to the pomp and circumstance, but we had, I guess, as an organization or game ops people within the D-backs, had become conditioned that this was part of what we were doing now. New normal, I guess, is the term. And so we were pretty well prepared to include that sentiment in what we were doing. I look back on it and it's just so surreal that we had all that happening at once. And yet, yeah, I mean, we and I'm not saying we as an organization, but we as a country seem to navigate it pretty well. But yeah, the two of them go hand in hand, where the country was and with this event, and it's almost impossible to separate the two.
With the NLCS, that wrapped up relatively uneventful. NLCS, Diamondbacks kind of coasted through that one. Last played on the 21st, then they played on the 27th. What was that buildup like, those 6 or 7 days in between heading into the World Series?
It seemed to go on forever. We had to process a lot of credentials. I remember there was a night we were working late in one of the big conference rooms at the ballpark, and we were just putting names on credentials while the American League Championship Series was on the big screen. And you remember Seattle had this monster year and won 116 games. And you just kind of thought, well, it's going to be the Mariners. And they never really, I don't remember a lot about that series. I remember a lot about ours. But at that particular point, we were doing 2 sets of credentials for a visiting team. We were doing this whole stack of Seattle and then this whole stack of New York, and obviously then the national media who would have covered us if we were playing Tampa Bay. It's the World Series. So we had an awful lot of stuff to do, but it was just the waiting. And then we had a public workout, I want to say the 24th or 2 days out before the series. And that drew, I think, about 35,000 just for a workout. And they wanted me there to just do some announcements in between some things. And I was down on the field during most of the workout. And it was just, every once in a while, you just kind of looked around and thought, oh my gosh, this is beyond anything we could have imagined.
You talked about filling out the credentials of the Seattle side, the Yankee side. Seattle had the season that you mentioned, 116 wins, but the Yankees come through and have this mystique to them, especially that 0-1 team in particular. I saw a stat from game one. They had 58 combined World Series rings on that roster. The Diamondbacks had one with Craig Counsell. So what was the mystique that came in with the Yankees when they were able to clinch and they knew they were going to be playing the Diamondbacks here in the World Series?
Because they had never been to our place before for interleague. There was a kind of an aura, they use the words mystique and aura, and there was to them. It's the iconic uniforms, the NY on the front of the batting helmets and the hats. Joe Torre, Don Zimmer, Derek Jeter, you just go on and on and on. I saw an interview today with Darryl Strawberry, and immediately I thought, hey, he was on that team too. I do think a lot of their success getting to the World Series was based on their experience in big games. And I'm an unabashed Derek Jeter fan. He always seemed to come through when it mattered the most. I love athletes like that. And I was glad that it was the Yankees, not just because of the whole mystique of the Yankees, but I wondered to myself, would a series against A-Rod and, obviously there was the whole Randy Johnson thing, seeing his former team again, but I just didn't think that it would hold the attention of the country to have Seattle against Arizona in the World Series, despite the fact that Seattle had this just monstrous season. It was much more meaningful that it was the Yankees because of the Jeters and the Mariano Riveras and Joe Torre.
The atmosphere of game one. You're the voice guiding the festivities, guiding the crowd. What do you remember? Obviously the visual is the white pom-poms going throughout the entire stadium, but what do you remember about that and the energy within that building that night?
I've never experienced anything like it. Certainly the 93 finals in the arena was comparable, but you're talking about 5 times the size or double the size of the crowd. The thing is, because it was television, most of the time that I was waiting to do things, I was waiting because I was waiting on a TV cue and I don't remember if there was a third party telling me, okay, the TV truck said go. But I had a headset on. I used a headset mic when I did PA. And because of that, it didn't drown out everything, but I couldn't quite experience it at the level that everybody else in the ballpark was. And we were just it was like being on a plane waiting to take off. You get to the end of the runway, you've taxied down there, and now you're just sitting there waiting for the tower to say go. And that's kind of what that felt like that night. Place is going nuts, pom-poms are waving, people whipped into a frenzy, and I'm just sitting there waiting for somebody to say go. But once it got going, it kind of felt routine. Not totally, obviously, but yeah, the moments leading up to the start of the game, or we were going to do a ceremony, were like, get on with it. Somebody, please, at Fox, did they forget to tell us? Because you would just sit there for what felt like 10 minutes. And I really did at one point think, did they just decide to do something else and they didn't tell us? They're showing an episode of The Simpsons or something. I mean, what? And it just finally, when they'd say go, boom, we'd go. But yeah, those moments leading up to game one were, I've never experienced anything like that before or since.
In game one, Curt Schilling gave up a first inning run and then cruised. Diamondbacks were able to put up 9 there early on in the game and kind of run away with it. When you're walking out of Bank One Ballpark that night, knowing that there's a game 2 the following day, what's the feeling with this team and this run after they wrap things up the way they did game 1?
I know I wasn't thinking we're in the driver's seat. There was only one moment in that entire series that I thought we're going to do this. And it's when we got the lead late in game 5. And I really thought we're going to win this game and we're going to go back to Phoenix and take care of it in game 6. That was the moment. Up until then, I was always just kind of like, it is the Yankees. They're going to do something to let you know that they're there. But yeah, I mean, Kurt had pitched in so many big games that year. And that was the thing that, that also was something I found noteworthy. There was never any debate. Schilling game 1, Johnson game 2. Done. Johnson game 6 of the World Series, Schilling game 7. And looking back on it, knowing the personalities of the two pitchers, it gives you a little insight into what a marvelous job Bob Brenly did as manager, because there could have easily been an ego issue. If he had gone the other way and said, hey, Randy's been here, he's my number one guy, does Kurt take it well? But after game 1, I didn't really feel, mostly after game 1, I'm thinking ahead, okay, what time do I have to be here in the morning?
Right.
To get ready for game 2. And I didn't really think, oh boy, we got a 1-0 lead. We're in the driver's seat on this. Because I'd been down that road with the Suns so many times. It's like, don't do that. It was just kind of like, okay, let's get to game 2. And then we win game 2 and you're thinking, okay, I didn't have a lot of high expectations in New York because it was New York, it's the Yankees. And they did end up taking all 3 games there. But no, after game 1, I wasn't kind of going, yippee, what time's the parade?